that old man got the tractor beam out of commission, or this is going to be a real short trip. Okay, hit it!
Hello, happy Saturday, everyone. I feel like it's rare for us to all try to get together on a Saturday. So I'm glad people managed to show up. I don't have a script for this intro because Steve forgot to write me one. Or I forgot to ask him for one. I'm not sure. That's maybe
he'll do it if you want it, Cece. He'll do it.
Yeah. Well, he's probably gonna bill me for it, so I don't think we're gonna agree on a price in that regard. So so this is the introductory show. It's going to be, I have a PowerPoint, but we're going to be kind of informal. So I want it to be as kind of like bare bones as I could possibly be on art prints, just to give people an introduction on how to get looking at them and add them to your collections and ways you can incorporate them into your collections.
And this is, Cece, this is a show that when you've done like 50 of these things, you're going to look back on this show and be like, look how embarrassing this was, right? Because it's going to be so much better.
Damn,
every time we go.
Low standards already?
No, that's how it always works. It's just how it always works. So I'm pumped. I'm pumped to be on the first show.
Thank you for your vote of confidence. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah. On all of us. We all suck at this. So it's always a good time. I love it.
Well, listen, I don't want any like women driver jokes because I'm the one who's running the PowerPoint. All right. Yeah. It's 2022. It's inappropriate. All right.
Yeah, women can.
Oh no, honey, you cannot go there. No, I'm kidding.
I'm down.
It's a meme. I didn't make that one up.
So just
you did make the voice up though, Jay. That was
no. You. That's the meme.
Oh, okay.
First episode, we're gonna get canceled for sure.
I know.
So some basic terminology. I think it's important to know that a lot of these art prints end up starting as commissions. So it's almost like when NYC does a customer project statue where it's almost like crowdfunding. They get a group of people together to commission one piece from an artist. And typically that's how these prints end up being available to the public. Sometimes you'll see really limited ones and you'll find out it's because it was a private commission where those individuals who got in on the commission got all an allocation, and some of those kind of leaked into the universe, if that makes sense.
Well, they also have like Facebook groups and shit like that, right? That like you can get in and be like, hey, we want to commission something from freaking Matt Ferguson or whatever.
Or exclusives. So there's been some really cool group exclusives where the artists kind of just want to like throw their crew a bone and say, this is a private group drop. Here you go. Or give them early access to one that's going to go wide. And then obviously a lot of our prints are going to be something like a screen print. I think the easiest way to describe the process is if you've ever seen a t-shirt screen printed at like a Comic-Con or something like that on the fly. It's basically just mesh that through chemical processes, they push ink through it. And then with those screen prints, because it's ink going through mesh, it's really easy for them to do different variants and different colors and different ink options. And we'll go over those too.
Don't they do variants with pretty much anything now, don't they? Like,
yeah, but I think it's and at least in my humble opinion, if we care to listen to it, is that it's more common with screen prints than it is with Gleeshy prints, which are basically just glorified inkjets. I think because of the process, it'd be interesting to do research on how these kind of variants started, if it started with the screen print kind of universe of art prints versus the Gleeshy or Gicley, as we obnoxiously refer to them. Gicley. So, like I said, Gicley. Now I'm saying it wrong on purpose.
No, it's for this show. It's going to be called Gicley.
Gicley.
Okay. Everybody knows.
Gicley's just a glorified ink
back
print.
to our roots. Yes,
and
it's primarily just a HP printer. Everybody.
Now that said, Gicleys can still look really, 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 really.
They can look really good, and usually the reason for going the direction of a Gicley is when you have too many colors. You can only do split fountain, gradation, and so many overlays with the screen print. Usually when you start getting into the problem with that is when you get to like a 20 layer screen print, you're talking thousands of dollars because each layer is hand pulled and you have registration marks to make sure all the colors align. Hence Gicley. It's not that like a lot of people think that companies are cutting corners. I see prints come out all the time and people are like, oh, I mean, even we say, oh, Gicley, we joke around. But it's not that they're cutting corners. It's just when you have a complex piece that was painted like in oil paints, for example, right, with all these shadows and other effects and colors, you can't really get all that proper separation with multiple layers of pulling ink through a screen over and over and over again. So
yeah, you're right. It's a limitation more on the technology than it is a gimmick and a way to cut corners, as you said. Now, a lithograph, I still get confused as to the difference between a screen print and a lithograph, but in the videos I've seen of them done, it's almost like they take a stone or a piece of metal and actually that's the medium in which they put the artwork on, and then through a process of like grease, ink, and water, transfer it to paper. Is that right?
It's so lithographs sort of fall into a gray area. Usually a lithograph is again, like giclée, which is pretty much a fancy name for a print, high-end, 4-color ink printer. Lithograph is offset. So when you have a screen print and you say, hey, this is a 12-colored hand-pulled screen, either the artist or someone that the artist approved is hand-pulling each one of those prints. So when you get a screen print that's an edition of 200, someone's literally pulling every color and putting it on a drying rack.
Pictures you see of people like actually like scraping on
literally doing it. Yes.
Yeah.
When you have an offset or a lithograph, it's a machine. It's on a table. It just it's just like that. Whether they're using the screen process or the stone process, it's just an offset basically.
Okay.
But it is important to know the difference, because when something is done by hand, it's just that much more special. Whether it's psychologically or what or not, it just adds a bit more.
Jason, where would you put the
hierarchy?
Like Jason, where would you put the hierarchy of what you would want? Right? Like what's
I would prefer a hand pulled screen print directly from the artist.
At the top.
And
then what? Lithograph?
Nah, I'd probably put. There's etchings. There's ones where they actually carve it and then lay rice paper. There's other aspects of prints, but we're not going to get into them because they're not widely used.
Right.
They're more
I'm talking
unique.
about the ones we're talking about right now.
The ones that we're talking about, I would probably go screen print, lithograph, then giclée would be my third.
Okay, yeah.
Because giclée is like, you can make one.
What about you, CC?
I'd actually put screen print, giclée, and then lithograph. And I only say giclée because because of the technology involved, it's more accessible for people to add those to their collection than it is like a lithograph.
Honestly, I would do the same thing, but the reasons I would say is that I do like some prints to have a shit ton of color in them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if I'm getting a Thor Ragnarok print, which I wouldn't, but if I did, I don't want a shit ton of colors in that thing, like bright, awesome colors. And that's not to say you can't necessarily do that with a screen print, but you might not be able to get all the variations or all the craziness you might want. And so
that's cost effective. Yeah,
it is cost effective. And for some designs, I think you might want that. So, but anyway.
And then, so an artist proof or an AP is just an allotment of proofs that go to the artist after the print run has ended, essentially. So they could do with them what they will. Same with the printer proofs. I tend to see the artist proofs available for sale more so than a printer's proof.
Right.
And I have a few artist proofs. I don't know, me personally, I don't think it makes a difference much. Like some artist proof, because it goes to the artist, will tend to be signed more often than like a hand numbered print that you get just off of a website. But AP and PP, let the jokes fly, are things you'll see on listed on prints. So that's what it means.
And CC, this is one of the reasons why, like, if something sells out, that's not the last chance you have to get it.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's not going to be easy, but you still have a chance with artist proofs.
Here's another thing too. There's always that mentality, and this again correlating to other collectibles, whether it be statues or whatnot, where people want like the lower number, number one. So the thing with that is when you're doing statues, right, and you get number one, it doesn't mean you got the first statue from that mold or from that, whatever it may be, however it was made. They're just numbering the plaques.
They just numbered
correlating them with whatever. With prints, so CC actually is 100% correct with the AP and PP, but if you go back to maybe just as early as 15, 20 years ago, and more so in the art world before prints became as wide spread as they are now within like the collectible, doing like Mondo and Bottleneck and Gallery 1980, that type of stuff. What the printer's proofs was for the printer to proof it. Look at the registration marks, look at the colors, and then they were actually destroyed. They had to be tore up, or they had to be basically marked out and cut. And a lot of times, if you had artists like, Matt, we talk a lot about some of the street art and urban art that I'm into. Like, if you had artists like from like Pictures on Walls, like Paul Insect or Banksy, they literally had to film, them cutting the printer proofs up so they didn't go out the back door, which would happen. And you'd have backdoor prints, which do exist out there. Anybody who's a fan of Shepard Fairey or Dave Kinsey, there's plenty of backdoor prints that made it out there that shouldn't have. And same thing with the artist proofs. So the artist proofs, there was a handful, usually anywhere between 4 or 6, depending on the artist or the process involved. And the artist would use that to proof it, make any revisions or changes, and then send that back and say, hey, I want to change this color, make it darker, make it lighter. But now it's become a thing where, as Cece had mentioned, now it's an allotment. Like, hey, we're going to do an edition of 100. Now there's 20 artist proofs. And they specifically give it to the artist so he can sell separately on his website directly or gift it to friends and family. So it's interesting how that has changed. And if you go even further back, they had what was called HC. And that became more of a problem, so we won't get into that. We can talk about that at a later date. But
isn't the printer proofs the one that have like the CMYK colors at the top still?
Sometimes, yes. You'll see the registration markings of those.
Right,
yes.
like all the decolors, and so they can kind of check.
Yeah, so anyway, they can match and check off.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole interesting like side thing of just like, they sell all the main ones and then artists get some to sell themselves. So.
But it just goes to show, like, and I think it's great that CC's really covering all of this because it just goes to show how much goes into this sort of behind the scenes or, before our eyes where we just take things, the process for granted and don't think about it. So it's important stuff, and I think it's great to, as we move forward to continue covering this stuff.
Yeah.
So this is going to be types of variants. I think everyone knows what this image is because I forgot to put a caption on it too. This is the Daniel Danger. It's the blue, the regular timed edition shadow box.
Yep.
So foils.
And just so everyone has an understanding of what we're doing right now. We're trying to cover very lightly all of this stuff just to give you an idea of what we're going to be talking about. We will do more in-depth shows on, I think, a lot of these variants, a lot of
the specific details.
The specifics. Yeah. I think CC, we're also going to be trying to talk to some artists, I believe, some print artists.
Like feature some of our favorite artists, whether they come on or not, or just feature their art, just talk about it, even collections maybe, because I think prints are more accessible for people to just send a bunch of JPEGs than it is to show gallery walls with glares and all that sort of thing. So here's 2 examples. I was happy I found a GIF of this rainbow foil called Darth Chocolate. Because that's the question.
I thought my eyes are fooling me for a second. I'm like, is he dressed like Shaft? Okay, I am seeing what I thought I was seeing. Okay.
So oftentimes when foils like this go up for sale, it's really difficult for it to translate in a photograph on a website. Like they typically, you can't tell the difference between a flat paper that there's nothing special to it and a foil like this. So sometimes the artist will throw you a bone and they'll post it on their own social media with a GIF of like, hey, here's where the metallic ink is, or this is the kind of, because they might call it a foil, but really the paper is either a mirror finish, like the Killian Enterprises, the Boba Fett one on the, I think it's still the right, or is it a rainbow foil? That's something that you'd want to know. Oh my gosh, of course he would.
Nice.
With his giant flat file.
It's amazing.
So, and I've gotten a lot of Pokemon cards. I've gotten a lot of questions regarding foils. That's one, personally, I think some of them tend to be gimmicky. I do have some mirror foils, and I do have some examples I'll show you later that some people consider foils. But depending on the art, I think it really has to just translate well to the subject matter and the concept of the art. Like if it's a really stoic museum pose kind of situation, I don't know why it has to be a rainbow foil. If it's like Mando and his swagger, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But this is so fun. This makes a lot more sense.
That makes sense. Yeah, you're right.
And that Killian,
I didn't think about it that way.
That Killian Enterprises Boba Fett is just beautiful. So of course I was going to show that one as an example of like what I would consider a mirror foil.
And like you said, I also think foils do a great job of like separating things, or at least like popping things out, or making it, because sometimes I feel like we pay for prints and you're just you're just getting a freaking Gickley, and it's like, okay, why am I paying this much money for whatever?
Yeah.
But when it's like foil variant or something like that, you at least feel like you're getting something a little bit more collectible. Kind of, I don't know.
Right.
Well, it's also hard to, with G Clay is the problem there too, is like you can just keep popping out more of them if some get damaged or whatever. Like with a lot of times with screen prints, they'll damage, purposely damage the screen so it can't be reproduced. And then foils, like it's hard to match that stuff. But I think CC made a good point. So when you look at the dark chocolate, I've never seen this before, and I think it's hysterical and amazing at the same time. That makes sense. That's a piece that should have that pizzazz, right?
Yeah.
Whole, like feel to it. Where if you just have something generic, there's no need to give it that extra bite. Yeah. And because there's extra cost and more complications to producing it. But this Killian over here, you're right, CC. This is literally mirror-like finish. I mean, you can see reflection in it like a mirror. But this is interesting how well these were done, because the inks on those, because there's also the 10th anniversary Luke on Tauntaun and then Vader, and I think another Star Wars one. But it's fantastic how well these were done, and these are a little bit different. You don't see prints like this too much because they're not necessarily foil. They are foil, but they're not. When I think of foil, I think of more of what we're seeing in the dark chocolate, that sort of rainbow-esque Lisa Frank style. A little bit of iridescence. This is I really like this. This is
that's why it's important to mention, because a lot of times when you see a print, it'll say foil, but it doesn't say if it's pearlescent or if it's metallic ink or if it's mirror or if it's rainbow. So sometimes you have to do your due diligence and look into that, because God knows if you don't know that this is a mirror foil and this is what it's going to look like in hand, you're going to be a little shocked when you get it out of the tube. You know what I mean?
Well, it's also pretty rare that they make prints from, porn shows. So that's cool. That's cool.
That's not my market, so I'm going to take your word for that one.
Right. Well, you put it on here, so I didn't find this.
These photos are awful because they're mine. So metallic ink is really difficult to photograph, and that was evidence of that in me trying to find photos of it all week.
It's also like sometimes hard to see with your eye.
It's incredibly subtle.
It is super subtle.
You have to be like very, very close. Like, don't put a bookcase in front of the print that you're like a double deep Billy. You're not going to be able to notice it. Like you have to get up close. So the top one is She's Got It Where It Counts by Mark Engler. It's one of my favorites. So you can kind of see it above Chewie's shoulder where it almost looks like glitter. You can see like little tiny like silver specks.
It's like when you walk past a print and the light catches it, and that's when you can see metallic.
It refracts
which is why it's so difficult to photograph. And then the bottom one is the first art print I ever bought myself, Matt Ferguson's Arena, and the only metallic ink to it is Captain Kirk's the command badge. The badge, and that's the last time I'm going to talk Star Wars on this Star Trek on this show, because I don't want to get kicked off anytime soon. Metal. So I think that metal variants, to me anyway, are a relatively new medium. Bottleneck has been putting out a few, and it's again another one that's pretty difficult to capture. I've only found one video of Matt Ferguson's recent WandaVision one in metal. And it has this incredible luminosity to it, almost like a foil, but it's metal.
Are they keeping them small still?
No.
Or are they making them bigger?
The Matt Ferguson WandaVision was 24 by 36. It's huge.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, the Josh Budick ones were the smaller ones, the 12 by 12s, the 6 by 6s.
Okay.
And then there's been a few like Avengers prints that have been done on foil, and it's one of those kind of like the metallic ink. You just really have to notice it when you walk past it to see how the light catches it.
Yeah, right.
But I would be interested to know like the process of how to like do more research in the process of how to make them. This is a Canadian artist that Kyle and our group turned me on to. And what I like is they are on the relatively small side. And I think they're also finished with resin over the top, which makes them incredibly shiny.
I will say some metal prints though, like Jason, you got that metal print from what, CC, didn't you send him the
disc plate?
Yeah, the disc plate. So disc plate has some metal prints where it's also super easy to put on the wall because they're metal, so you can put a magnet thing on the wall and just put your print up and put it the right place, and it's like super easy. So
and swap them out and stuff like that.
Yeah, super easy.
Do we have anything with diamond dust in here, or
no?
Jeez, Jason.
No, we could do well because I'll just say this real quickly, and then we'll get onto lenticulars. I was trying my best, despite the Star Trek print you saw, and you're going to see a few Batman ones. I was trying my best to stick with Star Wars, and off the top of my head this week, I couldn't think of one that was just diamond dust.
Jason, she has some coming up that are like Bitcoin based, like they just put Bitcoins into them and made them with Bitcoin. So you'll be happy.
Diamond dust isn't real diamond.
I know.
So these are two relatively recent examples. I think last 2 years, I want to say.
I like the one on the right, the Wanted. That's pretty cool.
Don't you remember that one, Jay? You don't remember
that one? They did a Grogu one too.
Vaguely.
Yeah,
it's pretty
He
cool.
he was using the Force, and so if you
I don't know about lenticular. I don't know about lenticular.
So can I ask though, for anybody who owns one of these in person, so they like the old, like, do they use the same lenticular process that's been used like the last 30 years, where you can like scratch it like a DJ, like if you run your fingers over it, it's got those lines? Is it the same thing?
I would think so. I don't know how else they're. I mean, because they're making it. They have to make what, an image on one side and then another side or something like that, or
it's like it's sort of offset like this, where it,
yeah.
Remember the like baseball cards?
Yeah.
That had lenticular, but you can like run your hands over it, and
and it's like
like you're scratching vinyl. Yeah.
I'm assuming
I really like the one, right?
I just don't own any of these, and I don't. It's one of those things I don't know. It would have to be. I have to really love the concept to get something.
I run as fast as I can away from these things. I just can't do it.
I've seen them in light boxes and they look really cool. If you want that kind of like movie theater vibe to your collection room.
Yeah.
I don't think I have any photos of a light box in here, but so this is a lenticular. Again, one that I think has come up more and more often last 2 or 3 years, maybe less.
Yeah, they're doing
2 years or the past year. So unusual paper or printing methods. So Jet Henry, whether it's so he does woodblock prints, which I'll show you an example of one, not Jet Henry's, but just a woodblock print. But then he also does Gickleys that are just printed on a really delicate acid-free Japanese paper that takes months to make, which is really interesting. One of the things I wanted to mention with these is that might seem really cool to have, yes, it's a Gickley, but what makes it a little special is that it's on that special paper. You're going to have to consider how you're going to frame that or display it. I think we talked about it briefly in a group therapy.
Usually
but that
floating,
kind of Japanese style to his art is really interesting. And then, so this is a project that Rhythm Force that came out in 2015, where they did Star Wars Japanese traditional wood block prints. They were quite expensive, but here you can kind of get the idea of how they were made as far as.
Well, how much were they, Jay? Do you remember?
This process in general, a lot of artists incorporate this. It's just very complex. And so each color, you see the color separation on the AT-AT, the red, the black, the grays. I mean, you're doing that. So they're painting that block and then running the paper, usually like a rice paper or something similar to it, constant that's like very, maybe 120, 130, and then running that over it. So the process is complex and time consuming. And you're not doing it by machine or digital. That's all hand carved.
Yeah.
That's why they usually run on the higher end. But they're beautiful. I mean, look at them. That's gorgeous.
I think they did 4 or 5, and they only did 3 or 4 of each, and I think they went into the thousands.
3 or 4 of each one?
Yeah.
Jeez, talk about limited. Jeez.
It might have been, well, I don't want to say in case I'm wrong, because I just remember seeing the yen, and I don't want to feel like getting that wrong.
Many yen.
But it wouldn't be, honestly, it wouldn't be too far off because of the complexity of these. I mean, there are ones now that are done by machine, they're laser cut, but when they're done by hand, which that's the purpose of doing it, they usually do run quite expensive because it is a very timely and complex process. But the end result is absolutely beautiful.
Thanks, Mario.
Appreciate you. And then Chancel is like a giant stamp, basically.
Pretty much, yeah. Very complex stamp. And Sean, you had said about the
Metal.
metal. Yeah, some of the metals are screen printed, and then some of them are done on machine, like a machine transfer. But yeah, you do some of the better ones, the more
Here's something
Arrow
Arrow El
into-
Maestro said. You have to be very careful when framing lenticulars, what we just talked about previously.
Yeah, once you scratch that surface lens, it can damage the look.
Yeah.
This is Cece, I've never seen or heard of this particular rhythm force before, but that's beautiful.
They were stunning. Yeah. That's
Great
something that
find.
I could do more research on and do an entire show just on Japanese inspired art.
Jason, I feel like this is something you would be totally down for. Like a
Totally.
extremely rare, limited, like
I have a James Jean one that was done like this.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and it's small. They're usually smaller. You're not going to see 24 by 36 in these.
Well, that looks like
they're usually tiny.
Looks like a normal sheet of paper.
Yeah, it's probably like 8 by 10, 9 by 12 tops. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably even smaller. Yeah.
That's so cool.
So glow in the dark. Whenever I think of glow in the dark, I think of Mark Engler again, who's one of my favorites. I know I talk a lot about Matt Ferguson, but I think second to that would be Mark Englert. So one of the things I will mention is, as far as how vibrant they are in your collection room, it's just like when you're a kid and you got like those stars that you stuck on your ceiling. They have to charge in UV light. So even though most prints, no one would recommend that you expose them to UV light. This is one of those that it's going to be beneficial to the glow in the dark effect. And as far as like how bright it is, I've had people ask questions where it's like, well, is it so bright in a dark room that it's going to keep me up at night? I don't know, and I don't think so. I think it's a little more.
It's usually a soft glow.
Yeah,
it's bright enough. It's bright enough to discern the image, but not bright enough where it looks like a light. Because this, like if you know, like some of the concert poster, like I'm making those guys, they started incorporating this early on, like in the last 10, 15 years. And a lot of people think it's like gimmicky. I was gonna ask your thoughts on it, CC. It's one of those things where the right print, it could really have a great effect. There's a Miles Sang print where he did a tour poster for Kanye. If you guys remember the Yeezus tour where he was wearing that Balenciaga mask over his face, what happens is he's like in sort of dynamic pose rapping, but he's got the mask over his face and he's covered with all these crazy things washing over him. But when the glow in the dark effect comes, you just see him. It's him like in his regular his face, and you can that shines through in the glow in the dark. So in the right print, or even these ones, I mean, you can see the image changing from the battle to Luke.
I can't. This is super like gimmicky to me. These are the kind of ones that I avoid like the plague from when I
know, but the right piece.
Mondo.
Yeah.
I think the right piece can really drive it home, but it is becoming a little bit more common as a variant or a third or fourth add-on. So yeah, it's becoming difficult. What do you think?
I don't want my prints to glow. What do you? Yeah, CC. What do you?
So, like I said with lenticular, like it'd have to be. I'm going to show you one Batman one that I have that's glow in the dark. The concept just has to be great. Like I didn't buy either of these. Actually, no, I think I do have the Last Jedi one. I just don't know where it is. So there are some he's done, some older ones that are incredible. That I would consider buying with the glow in the dark effect. Of course, because variants are variants and those can be gimmicky as well. Sometimes with these, he'll have the glow in the dark effect, which is the regular, like typically timed edition. Then he'll have a variant where one is Ahsoka and Grogu training, and then the other variant is Ahsoka fighting what's her face? I forget. The mayor, I guess. Was that her title? Anyway. So he'll do a variant of that. That's something I would certainly consider, but it has to make sense. Like the one I'm going to show you, I think it makes a lot of sense because it's almost like comical. It's not kitschy. It's not as formal. It's kind of more fun. It has to be something like that. It can't be, like I said, stoic. It has to make sense to the image, the concept, the story. I think for me to really love it.
Yeah.
And so size or orientation, I don't see these as often as variants, but these were the ones that came to mind as soon as I thought of this, was that this Clever Girl by Foley, the variant was that it's a quad edition, and Matt Ferguson's done them as well, where it'll be 30 by 40, and the regular will be like 24 by 36. And then I think most people know about this print by Jock because it is
the
quite
Jock
popular.
print.
Whereas the vertical orientation tends to be more popular.
It's
than
more of a
the
poster
horizontal one.
like. Yeah, it's more of a poster like. See, I also get a little like I don't know what to think about the prints that have like the white border and the thick white border at the bottom. Like sometimes that bothers me because then when you frame it, it's like the white border's like on one part of it at the bottom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just doesn't kind of throws it off.
I agree, Matt. I think, and this is all personal preference, right? But I think if the white border, let's say it's 1.5 inches, but it's 1.5 inches all the way around, clean and even, that I'm okay with because you can frame it properly. But you're right, something like this makes it tricky because you have to, you know.
But you know what, guys? Like, I feel like either Lucasfilm has people do this on purpose or something because everyone, like, when you go to Celebration, like, and you get a Dave Dorman print or something like that, they're all like this. They all have that thick white border at the bottom, and you know what I'm saying? So it must be a thing.
You will get that. So there's been some, I don't want to say legalities, but there have been instances where it's more of like a very traditional movie poster where I forget the name of it, but basically like see the that Clever Girl print.
Yeah.
It has the Jurassic Park logo and then it has the credits underneath it. There's some, I think it's the Killian Ang original trilogy where the first one was a private commission, and so therefore he put the credits and like the cast of New Hope in there, and then the other two were not private commissions, and he could not do that. He could only put the title and nothing else. So there are some nuances with that. But that being said, I don't think that's necessarily like that's nothing to do with the variant. Those are just shitty prints in my opinion, because like Acme does it, and that you're right. I think it is a Disney thing, or there's a reason why they have to have a border like that if it's to fit like the copyrights and the Lucasfilm and all that kind of stuff. And I do think it's difficult to frame stuff like that, but that's just a print thing. That's not like a variant thing. These are ones that are specifically a certain size, and they only make a certain amount in this size.
Well, and the Jock ones, this Jock one right here, the ones that are actually more like poster size, those were actually the cheaper ones, the cheaper versions, and the ones they had a lot more of. Like these were the limited edition ones, the horizontal ones, the portrait
ones.
And
people tend to prefer the composition of the vertical ones, so those are the ones that are more sought after and also more expensive for that reason.
Well, I think with this image specifically too makes sense. It's almost like a camera angle, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So this is one that I've tried to get into. Is remarks.
I'm so glad you brought this. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Stacey, throw off your game, and I'm so glad you brought up remarks because I'm interested to hear. Yeah, and guys, people watching, it seems like we get a decent amount of people on with us tonight. You know, feel free to leave some responses and leave some feedback as we're going through this stuff.
And I did see Mark hold up on the Matt Ferguson print you're talking about. So I like the idea of remarks because if someone like me, I'll fully admit, is a little intimidated by the concept of a commission or the price involved and the commitment to the artist and the waiting game that you'll often have to take with those, I think this is a little tiny step into owning original art without paying nearly as much, because it's basically a screen print or a Gicley, and then it's almost like marginalia. In the margin, it'll either be, I've seen some that are very well rendered where it's basically a mini painting on top of a print and it looks fantastic, or it's a sketch like this. I actually threw this in for Steve because he's a big Dave Dorman fan, obviously. And I think this looked, and obviously it makes sense to the print to Bausch, but it doesn't always have to. I've seen ones where it's like, it's a Venom print and someone got it remarked at a con and they wanted a Batman remark on it, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
They also do this a lot in comics.
Like you have sketch covers.
The remarks, the whole remarks thing, like they do it.
So what do you guys feel about? So what do you guys feel about though, like the way it affects the image? Now, Cece, you made a great point. It is a nice touch to have an original, like have that original touch by the artist on the print. And I didn't think about it in that way. Like if you don't want to go the way of getting a study or a commission or even the time frame of waiting for something like that, you have something original. But do you think it interferes or maybe that's subjective because maybe it could, based on the way it's done, look bad or good. But overall, I always felt on certain artists who take this approach, I feel like it can sometimes hurt the print. And there's been times where artists will just remark things at random, like maybe they're just signing and they decide to scribble something or draw something. I've gotten a few times where I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool, but I don't know. To me personally, unless it's done in like the right spot, it visually throws me off. But you do make a good point that it's a great way to have a touch from the artist. But so like with these two examples, do you think that visually, if like throws you off a little bit, or do you like it? Like,
no, I think they're great. So I understand, and to Robert's point, I like it because it is more personal. But if you're, which I don't, but if you're buying prints because you think that this one in particular is going to be worth more because it has remarks, you're not wrong. But if it's because it is so personal, it's almost like when you buy a house and you immediately decide to paint all the walls black. You might think it's fantastic, but when you go to sell that house, it's not going to be for everyone. So I think it's
like I just said,
but I think that it only adds to the uniqueness of the print, and so it's not. I don't think it takes away from the art print, and also I'm kind of I think everyone knows this about me. I feel like if I like a print enough and I have one with a remark and I'm like, you know what, I think the placement's off or whatever, I'll just buy a regular print that's not remarked and see which one I prefer, or hold on to both of them. You'll find out in a second that I tend to get regulars and variants. Danny, I'm always right. So if that answers your question. And Mark, are these the same as embellished prints? Honestly, never heard them called remarks.
Embellished. So I was actually going to bring that up, CC, about how you feel about embellished prints. So they're definitely not the same, but it would be interesting to get into. I just don't know, like Matt said, like how much direction we want to go into today. But I was going to ask how you feel about embellishments. Like before, I felt embellishments used to be a unique thing that was added for the purpose of, okay, even though this is a print edition, if you can't afford a study or an original, or you don't want to maybe wait the year or 2 years that it takes to get that piece, here's a print and I'll hand embellish it. Now I feel like it's becoming just like glow in the dark or foil or other things, an added addition just to make another variant, or just so I don't want to use the word cash grab because that's tacky, but I think embellishments are becoming a little bit more widespread and a little bit more commonplace, even for artists who normally wouldn't do it or prefer not to do it. So yeah, I'd be interested in getting some feedback on that too, because I used to prefer getting embellished prints. I always liked it and I always enjoyed it. I think things are changing and how, like remarks, for example, like Dave Dorman, that was like his thing, right? He was one artist who always did a lot of remarks and did a fantastic job. Look how beautiful that artwork is, right? So yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to tangent off, but
are you done with your tangent, Jay?
No.
Okay.
But no, it is different. A remark is just that, a remark, a scribble, a drawing, depending on the level of quality is, that differs. An embellishment would be this print, but then Dave going in and maybe highlighting Leia's costume with oils or acrylics, or maybe, painting, carbonized Han, doing the added details and additional, again, acrylics, oils, inks, whatever. That's embellishing the print, which is adding more layers to it uniquely.
Brandon asks, which would you prefer, a limited edition print or a commissioned piece of original art?
To answer, well, so to answer Jason's question, or gosh, Mark's sort of. So I'd prefer a remark over an embellishment. I think a remark is more unique than an embellishment. I think you really have to be knowledgeable about the art to tell the difference between, and depending on how the art is done, an embellished print versus a print. So I like the idea of the quick scribble and the remark. So as far as a limited edition print or commissioned piece of regular art or original art, so I so far only have like 2 commissions that are like out in the ether that I've been waiting on that are not terribly impressive, but I like art prints because I could have more of them and not go bankrupt. I like the variety of it, and I think everyone knows here, Star Wars has my heart, but also I collect other IPs. So it's a much easier for me to have a lot of Star Wars prints, a lot of Batman prints, a lot of Marvel prints without going broke or having to sell my body because I'm buying original art of the same. I hope that
I just like hiding Jason's face. I mean, Brandon, I'm sure Brandon knows this. I'm sure everyone knows this, but obviously original artwork is going to cost you a shit ton more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like a ridiculous amount more than the limited edition print. I would think it should.
Yes.
Maybe that's not always the case, but
like 9 times out of 10.
I guess it depends. I guess it also depends on, okay, if the limited edition print, if the original artwork is this, but the limited edition print is on canvas and you really like canvas, right? Then you might want that. You might like that better. So it may be the medium that you're going after more than the original.
Yeah.
I guess it just depends on what you kind of want.
Or if you could afford a commission that's a sketch, but not a fully rendered piece or a painting or whatnot, a print might be. As a collector, I prefer prints. But if I had Kanye West money, original art. All day.
And Brandon's saying not necessarily, and that's what I was saying. It's not always the case, but it seems to be the case that like original artwork is quite a bit more expensive, but more sought after. If it's
yeah, but it's a good point because I think a lot of times there's no harm in asking. I don't think anyone should feel ridiculous because I've asked artists about commissions and sometimes it's a lot less than I ever anticipated.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's like it's almost like smoke and mirrors. You don't know until you ask. Same with like we talked about the APs. If you think that because a print sold out on Bottleneck, that Bottleneck can't find one in a back storeroom, perhaps, or Mondo, or an artist doesn't have APs and he just hasn't listed, like, feel free to ask. There's no harm in trying to reach out.
Well, I did it with the Pablo Oliveira one for the RS swap meet. Remember, I just sent them an email and asked for an extra and got one for Rob. Yeah.
So this is one where I wanted to mention this because when we talk about variants and variants being gimmicky, so in my opinion, there's variants that are very unique and have some really substantial differences like these two. So the top one is the Matt Ferguson Killing Joke. I happen to own both of them. So the glow in the dark one is actually the regular, and then that kind of like sepia tone is the variant. That was done because if anyone knows, the original comic was in that color scheme because the colorist kind of fucked up.
I do like this story. I like this glow.
This is
and
fantastic.
then the color scheme, that purple, is based on the 20th anniversary edition, I want to say. But this is one of those. I've got a problem sometimes where I just end up getting like variants and regulars because I can't decide between the two. And then the bottom one, I don't have the regular, which is the lighter blue one, the Batman Begins. I do have the variant. So these I think are impressive variants because there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They're definitely two different styles of print. And not everyone's going to love both, so it's a little easier. The other ones I want to show you are ones that this is another one where you can't, there's no mistaking this. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I know everyone's really excited about this one.
This though, CC, this is what they do for the most part. This is the majority of the variant type of that they do.
I would say this,
so
like a different, like I think the grayscale and the black and white with pops of color, I think that's been having a moment for the last few years. But the other style of variant is the one I've seen more often than anything else, I want to say. So more so than like the Matt Ferguson examples I just showed you and the Kevin Wilson examples I just showed you. And that's where I wanted to mention it because these ones, it's like you have to, I think everyone remembers when we talked about these when they released, like sometimes you can't tell the difference very well.
This is cash grabby right here.
Yeah, and it's a change. It's a very subtle change in saturation.
And a lot of that's exactly right. What a lot of times what they're doing is they're just adjusting the colors. They're just desaturating things. And you know what's crazy to me, and I don't understand why. Why is it that the more muted colors are almost always the variant that is more expensive or more sought after? It's so strange to me that like the thing that actually has the right color, the proper color, the pretty, more beautiful color in some cases is the normal print.
I wonder that too, Matt. I'm genuinely curious. I don't know, and I've been collecting art for 20 plus years of all sorts and types, and I tend to think that like lately people just see that as like more unique or different, especially when you have people who are looking to potentially, I hate to use the word flip, but flip, or maybe it's just hype. They're getting the piece because it's like, oh, the hottest, newest piece on the block.
Right.
You're right. If something's in its natural form, do you think you'd go for that than some random offset color that just makes no sense?
It's
like
super weird.
When I think of variant, that the two examples that CC just had with the Batman, like that's a variant. Like that makes perfect sense, especially the bottom one, the left and the right. That was amazing how they were two different images, but in a sense the same. Yeah, this is just, that's what a variant should be. Like all day, every day. That's phenomenal.
That's super different. That yellow one is freaking amazing.
Oh, it's fantastic. But when you and even like the Rogue One, I guess that's more like, is it preference? It's still cash grabby, but at the same time, it's giving people a little bit of like, hey, do you like this or do you like that?
I can't wait to get this print. It's so good.
I know.
It's so
I know,
good.
and I went for the grayscale. I went for the monochromatic. But it's funny because that was my preference. However, I do think this still goes in the direction of like, how far can we stretch this, right?
Sure, yeah,
because,
sure.
Again, all this was a click of a mouse, and bam, you get a variant.
Mm-hmm.
So Benjamin's saying that's not just a change of saturation, that's color grading by adjusting various color channels. Yeah, which is for sure.
Yeah,
we were just simplifying it.
Yeah, I still think.
Don't be know-it-all, Benjamin. No, I'm kidding.
He would definitely. I mean, I think what they're
I was joking.
Aren't they photographers? So they would know that. But that said, like, I still, even if that's the case, and they are changing like colors and in different channels and stuff, it's still so like, sometimes it's so subtle and sometimes it's so like, I just don't. It feels like a cash grab.
Like,
it just
like with this one, Matt and CC, it almost looks like the top one is almost like early morning, like both sitting on the throne around like 5:30 a.m. and then at the other one it's like 5:30 p.m. Like, and I'm not making a joke. Like, that's almost like how subtle it is, but it almost looks like a different time of day with the way the light is coming in. And it's definitely more. Yeah, it is more complex than a push of a button. And Benjamin, I didn't mean any. I hope you took that as like.
And I don't want to be like a anti-variant. Like, whatever floats your boat, floats your boat. It's just some of them are just more subtle than others, and it's an interest. And we could have an entire show just on this as well. It's an interesting conversation as to sometimes the regular, in my opinion, is the best option, and sometimes it does affect your opinion if you hear that the artist chose the regular to be the regular because that was the preferred option. Like, or like if you're like me and I can't decide, like the Rogue One, it was incredibly difficult for me to decide on just getting the regular edition, or of course the regular edition versus the variant, and I have BSB in both editions because I couldn't choose. So, and even we had that with the recent Daniel Danger shadow box where there's three different colors, and I thought the timed was the better of the three options. But
yeah, I agree.
So yeah, it's really interesting. So this is one where it's this one's very subtle, where I had issues when I was going after it because it was one of the few drops on Bottleneck I actually missed, I think last year or 2 years ago. This one I had to be really careful with because it is so subtle that seeing eBay listings, that he didn't mention it was a foil, because I was going after the variant that was a foil.
I was going to ask that, CC. So the one on the right, is that why they're showing that sort of tinge of light? Is because it reflects?
It's a gift that the artist posted so that you would see what the difference was, because
otherwise on a flat, you wouldn't be able to tell, which makes a huge difference. Because if I was just looking at this as a flat image, I would just think it was black and white. Now that I see that, it's that much more attractive to me.
Yeah, I would have gone for the black and white on this one. It's not. There's not enough of a difference. It's like,
and not only black and white, but the one on the, I think is pretty much the left, is warmer, and it does have that like slight pop of red. I own the variant, the foil, the like straight black and white. So what's going to bother me if I had that sepia tone? Because again, they're so subtle that if you, I don't want to say novice, that sounds insulting, but if you looked at it real quickly and you didn't know about color temperature and differences, you'd probably be like, this is the same image. If one wasn't a GIF and it was just in front of you and you looked at it real quickly, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
Don't you guys think though that this would have been a great opportunity to make a full color all the different little red and green lights and all the stuff behind him, and then the actual like color of like that would have looked awesome. Like
It
it
would
would
have,
have looked
but
amazing.
now you're talking about catering to a market, which is what you said a few minutes back about why do you have a beautiful image that's proper in color and tonality versus coming up with all these crazy tones and black and whites and sepia, etc. It again, it's catering to that mindset and psychology of as this hobby grows and more people get into print collecting. It's like Baskin Robbins, right? Sometimes you just want to choose between chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry. You don't need 31 flavors. It starts to confuse you and overwhelm you, and then you're like, wait a minute, sometimes you just need it in its proper or purest form. But it's tough. It's all subjective too. Everything's subjective.
Is this Mondo or Bottleneck?
Bottleneck, and it's across from me right now. And the artist was inspired by Ralph McQuarrie when he did this, and I honestly don't appreciate it enough, but it's beautiful.
It's very pretty.
My 50 Shades of Grey.
Fantastic piece, CC.
Yeah, it's really pretty.
So I just real quickly, because this could be an episode within itself. So assessing value, because I get that question a lot where it's like, well, here's this print on eBay. Do you think it's worth it?
Right.
Like, I think that you should consider how, just like any statue that you see aftermarket, after it's been sold out, think of the edition size. How many did they make? What's the condition? Right. Make sure you get photos of the corners. Make sure there's no dog-eared corners, no damage. Or if there is damage, how much does it matter to you? I have a print that had slight damage, but I knew once I framed it, it wasn't going to matter. So I was like, less than retail for that. Heck yeah. Is it signed? Does it have a remark? Size or display options. I mentioned this more not for the resale value. So if you buy a print and you don't think you'll be able to sell it later because the size is what's going to throw people off, that's not what I mean. I mean, like how valuable it is to you. So if it's a print that you really like, but it's in a custom size, you need to factor in the cost of custom framing, the cost of matting. So when you factor those in, that print might be less and less attractive to you. So that's what I mean by Yoda's wrong, subject matter.
And we'll do more, guys. We'll do more of this on separate shows. Like
this you can get a lot into. Yeah.
I like that Far From has the afternoon, the happy hour version of the Pablo Oliveira print.
Yeah, he's got the.
I have the black and white one. So display options, I really love when people manage to display prints with statues. I can't do it just because it makes my head hurt just trying to figure these out. But this is Rob McCormick's collection. I
you have to have you have to have a very specific place to collect, and like it has to work out perfectly for you. And in some cases it can. It's just not always the easiest.
This one we all saw in, I think, the spotlight of the last group therapy when this print sold out, but this was great. This is Corey's collection. Yeah, that's cool. The Reverend with that poster. This is Mike Costa's collection, that Can You Speak Baushi print with the Jawa and the Rancor. I thought that was a really great combination with that diorama, which is either Legacy Arts or Jazz Ink. I think it's Jazz Ink.
It's a nice. What's that? Let me see that poster behind the Jawa. What is that poster behind the Jawa?
This one?
Yeah.
It's this one. Can You Speak Baushi?
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's a good, that's a killer poster.
Which I think you can both get so this is a gallery wrapped canvas.
Yeah.
As opposed to a paper print. And I think it's still available on Acme and both media.
So what do you
still available, Jason, just in case you need to. What's that?
I have that print.
Oh, you have it? Okay.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about like the various options when you can do, print on paper, print on mat board, print on canvas, gallery full, stretch? Like when you're given those options, how does that, like, just curious how people feel about that.
So I have mostly prints on paper. And the matting situation is basically it's how do I say this? I'll use a mat if it means I don't have to get it custom framed. I'm not one that ever buys like a 24x36 and goes, gee, I can't wait to put a mat in front of this or around this and have a custom frame. I rarely think about matting when I get a print unless I know specifically that white border around it is going to cause problems. And as far as the mixing, I guess, perhaps paper prints and canvas. I do have a canvas that's not stretched yet, that I had no problem adding to my collection, knowing it was just going to be the one. If I had like half my collection canvas, half my collection paper prints, I think it would honestly bother me. But I know Mike's appeal with the gallery wrap canvas is that there's no glass or acrylic involved, so therefore there's less glare. I think it's just a personal preference thing, and also a budgetary thing, because the gallery wrap canvases it's always going to be more expensive. It's more labor intensive.
Yeah, see, I think it all depends. Like I've got the Luke on Hoth Macquarie print on canvas, float framed. It looks great. Looks really, really good. And so I think it just depends on kind of where you're going to put these things, and you know, like if you actually can get them framed properly, this is the thing. Like you got to make sure everyone has to understand that if you're gonna, and I'm sure most people know this, but if you're gonna get into prints and you're gonna get into some of the stuff, if you're not just like statues, like hot toys, all that stuff, if you're not going to display them properly, you probably shouldn't be doing this. Like it's probably not the best idea for you to get into this in the first place. If you can't actually, if you don't have room for all of this stuff, I mean, that's not to say you can't get a portfolio or a flat file. Like I know you're going to talk about at some point, CC, that is possible. If you just want to collect prints that way, that's okay. But I'm just saying that you got to have a solution for how you want to collect.
Yeah, you're right, Matt. There's a lot of things, and again, there's so many things we got to be careful here because there's so much conversation to be had. But you know, I mean, and CC, you probably have this lined up too. But it's just like someone who goes out and buys a $400 print, and they're like, I'm gonna go to Joann Fabrics and buy a $20 frame. Like, no, that's not what you do. But not everybody, a lot of people do it, and they see no harm in it. But I just think with the gallery wrap versus on paper, I'm starting to see that a little bit more often now, especially with things like Acme Archives. I mean, they've been doing it for a while, I should say, but it's one of those things where is that looked at as a variant or just giving you different options, because it sort of opens the edition up a little bit more, because they'll say, okay, we'll do 200 on canvas, 200 on paper, 200 on, you know, et cetera. And that's one of those things where it's like, okay, it's great that you have the preference of like, hey, I like canvas. That looks great gallery wrapped and float framed, versus, oh, I like it on paper to match everything else I have. But then again, you're playing with the edition size, or it's one of those things where how did the artist originally paint it? You know, did they paint it on canvas? Great, you replicate it on canvas. Did they paint it on paper? You know, it's interesting that all these options and all these worlds are starting to become a little bit more diverse as you know, the collectability of it and the community just gets larger.
Well, and I think sometimes we forget that, like, you can you know, you can collect prints, but if you decide, hey, I want to display prints, I want to actually like collect prints and display them, that's a whole nother cost that you have to incur on your collection budget, right? Like it's a whole nother situation. And then if you want to do it right, if you actually want to do it right to where they last for a very long time, which I'm not as particular about. I am on some things, on some prints, but for everything, my philosophy with prints is basically like YOLO. Like you if you're not gonna display the thing, what's the point of having it? Or if you're not gonna be able to look at it, what's the point of having it? Which, to be, just so everyone knows, I have tubes and I have lots of tubes. So I'm not saying that I'm a model citizen here, but I am saying that, like, don't let getting a frame and acided, whatever they do, like all this like stuff to future proof your prints. Don't let that stop you from displaying your prints. That's not the smart way to go. But you do have to remember that it's all going to cost money. It's all going to cost you more money. So something to think about.
So this one was the I think everyone knows, the Ralph McQuarrie C3PO and R2D2 concept art in front of or behind the sideshow bust. Killer combination.
I like that. Yeah.
That's just a great photo too. This was Jeff's collection. We know this guy.
On a wolf.
So this is Ahsoka and Rex on
Can't get enough of
Wolfwolves, right? Concept art by Dave Filoni, signed
This
by
is
Dave
this is a freaking pipe dream, is what this is. Freaking Ahsoka on a giant wolf, never gonna happen. But yeah, like yes, Steve. I've said this many times. Steve does a really good job. He's always done a really good job of putting prints with statues, with hot toys, with props.
Yeah.
He knows how to like balance things out.
He's horrible at hiding wires, but he definitely plays like a statue. I'm kidding.
To be said, I've heard a lot of people. I'm victim to it as well, where it's like we run out of wall space. It's like, well, have you considered other art that's small enough to fit in a Billy bookcase? And I think I have another. I'm not sure. I might have photos of prints that I appreciate because they're not.
Yeah,
they're not these big bed sheets back here. They're 24 by 36 because there's other. The smaller the print, the more versatility you have and how you display it if you want it on a shelf.
But it also the smaller the print, the more the you might have trouble displaying it with other really large prints if you're not careful. You know what I mean? Depending on how you display, like so you know. But then again, you might put it with a smaller statue and it'll look fantastic. So that's the tough part is you got to put them in the right places.
I think it depends on how balls to the wall you want to get with a gallery wall.
Yeah.
So this one was No Country for Old Men by Benjamin Carrere, I want to say. It's just like the author. And then the Obi-Wan premium format. And then I know one of those is the found parts, and I think one is the Roman props for the sabers. But this is
one on the front's the Roman, one on the
stand is the found parts,
Yeah.
So this is where I was like, these are I'm a little biased. These I like because those prints, the live
sabers
art
are awesome.
Is
oh wait, this is yours, Cece.
Yes. Yeah.
Cece,
I didn't realize it.
Hide that wire. Please hide that wire.
Dude, I love the way those sabers are displayed.
To be fair, I'm trying to convince Steve to make a stand for that helmet where it's going to lift the helmet up a little bit. And you're not going to see as much wire.
That'll help.
I do have the equipment to hide it, but
I like that helmet.
Maybe.
I like that Vader mask.
Yes. Awesome. Yeah. But I really like the artist who did those two. This is a blurry photo. I think I blew it up too much, but the artist is Ashton Gallagher. He's done some great, really small prints, and also a lot of different IPs. So these are the kind of sizes that I think would also fit on a shelf. But
that's a great way of adding just a little extra touch to a display too, Cece. That was nice. That's well done.
Well, especially me being an art print fanatic, I'm gonna try to squeeze them in everywhere I can. You know, I loved this. So this is did I not put his name? Damn it, Joshua. This is his collection. He's a big Tom Whalen fan. I dare say, like, I'm a Matt Ferguson fan. He's that to Tom Whalen. I loved this with the West Coast replica eyes, and I actually had not seen this Jabba's Palace print before, so I thought this was a great way to, instead of a statue, to show a replica prop that really goes really well with the print and the colorways. This is Tony's.
Very nice.
So I liked the print behind the TIE Bomber and the clown car. Now that Rogue One, it almost looks like lenticular. I'd have to ask him that because it has like a bit of a sheen to it, but I think that's just a generic Rogue One poster.
I think that might have been one of
amazing.
Yes, I think that might have been one of those ones that you got at the actual theater. You know, like when the theater gives a pulse away, it looks like that.
Mm-hmm. And the 501st, that saber holder, you can go back and pause the video too, is by Quest Design Canada on Etsy. Compliments of my sister. She bought it from me like a decade ago.
Shout out to Cece's sister.
But I love this with the Jack helmet.
Beautiful.
Statues.
Yeah, his collection.
Great angle.
Fantastic.
Again, biased. But I wanted to feature this because I do get a lot of questions on what that print is. Even though it was huge edition size, it's readily available. You could find it any other time on eBay. It's like I said, it was a huge edition size, even for a variant of 470. It's almost like they knew it was a killer fucking print and they needed to make a lot of them. Yeah. But this is what my backdrop looks like when I'm not standing in front of it or sitting in
I
front
love
of
it. Cece, you're going to be able to add a Kylo saber to that because
I know.
Jason took it. So
Yep. I'm excited.
Yeah, that's right. That's a perfect spot for it too.
That's gonna be
That
awesome.
comic's gonna get the hell out of there, I think.
Looks great though.
Another blurry photo of mine, but this is my living room gallery wall.
That's nice.
Oh wow.
I
You
think
know why they made so many of that print? Because people like you were like, I need many of these. Those are huge.
I think it was timed. I want to say it was like 800 they did of the regular, but that V for Vendetta on the other side, that's the only, is it the only mirrored foil I have? That was an edition size of 50, and it's actually one of my favorites. It's Lyndon Willoughby is the artist. I don't know if I put that. Nope, because it's not Star Wars related. Yes. Yes, it is the Nissan exclusive Death Trooper helmet, the one by Gentle Giant.
Yeah.
This is Steve's collection, so he's got some
he's gonna love this shit, isn't he? Surprised he's not here.
That weird size. I looked into I think the frames that he got these. Yeah. He bought them from like a big box store like Michael's or Hobby Lobby, and they've discontinued them because it was the size of these, I want to say, is 12 by 36, which is a hell of a size. It's a popular non-standard size. So Mark Engler does a ton of them. Pablo Vera's been doing a ton of them too. Those are just pretty pricey to frame.
See, those are the prints. The Steve's ones, those are the prints they're selling currently at Disney right now. In the little, it's like it's like one thing that
they're like you can get the 3, 3, and 3.
Yeah, it's actually really
for that.
They're actually really
OT, original, prequel, and sequel. It's really cool how they have it.
Nice consolation prize for people who don't want to pay the buku bucks for the originals. Yeah. This is Joshua's collection again with the Tom Whalen set. I think this is
funky. I like that.
This is a great way to showcase a lot of really small prints and make it look excellent, like kind of like a grid system.
I will say though, if you're gonna go with, I do something similar in my hallway, but I don't dare try to make them like even, because that is really, really hard to do.
Gee, if only we had photos of that, Matt, where we could show the people how you choose to. So I actually do care. So I do.
I got that salon style.
Yeah, I know.
That's what that's called.
I'll take a picture. I'll take a picture. Send it.
Yeah, so these are great, especially on a shelf. I think he does have a few of them where they're just on a bookcase in front of some items, and they look really great. So this is one where he just like my print addiction, where he got the regular and the variant, and I think they look really great together. Normally, I would not. I justify it by putting them in 2 different rooms, but I think these look really, really great. And I do not know what these are, and I forgot to ask. I don't even recognize the property on those ones. Hey, Hugh. Another kind of DTOF comic print combination from Kyle. Yep. So these ones were quite popular. So you've got the original, the OT on the left, and then the prequel trilogy on the right. And I'm still looking for the 5th. So it's the Stormtrooper one, the Empire Strikes Back one. If anyone's selling just that print, hit me up, because
Do you have all the other ones, Cece?
No, so I only have, I don't know if I have a photo of it, actually. I might not.
Yeah.
I wish I had, because I have the Anthony Daniels plaque next to it. I have the top one, the New Hope one.
Okay.
But Michael from NYC has all of them, but that Empire Strikes Back one. And it's anyone will find out, if you are into a set like this, you're going to be hard pressed to find anyone who's giving up one piece of the set.
Yeah, for sure.
9 times out of 10, people
sell it. On which ones?
The Empire Strikes Back, the Trooper, this one.
Oh, the one. Yeah, Matt, you have those, don't you?
I have all of them. Yeah, mm-hmm. I got the pearlescent versions of all of them, I guess. But I have the original, the 1, 2, and 3. Episode 1, 2, and 3 are still in my tubes. I don't have them up yet, so I gotta get on that. But they're beautiful. They're really, really awesome prints, for sure.
Danny, I can message you too, because I think I know what you're talking about. And then this is the Burgos Darth Maul as well on this side.
Yeah, that's a cool print.
And then I think I have photos of these two. And then back here is the Pablo Oliveira, and I think it's the variant. Again, the regular and the variant were pretty subtle. Nice to see your name in the chat, Brian. Yep, this was Chris's frame up of the Cloud City concept art by Ralph McCoy. I just love the colors in this. I thought this was beautiful.
Yeah, that's pretty. I like the frame he chose as well for this.
Yep. These are those other ones. So we were able to see this one in Kyle's gallery wall, and then the Vader. We talked about these briefly. The artist anyway, Robert Bailey, and I think the last group therapy where he only does one off. So these are original pencil sketches, I want to say.
Oh, that's cool.
This is Kyle's collection as well. I thought this was interesting. I don't know if he has all of them or if he just managed to, he only has the Return of the Jedi, but this was one of the, I want to say early Matt Ferguson trilogy sets. I think it was released in 2016 or 2014. But colloquially, it's known as the Death Star series because each one features the Death Star in some way, shape, or form. And then this one here, Damsel of the Dune Sea, this is the first time I'd ever seen it, and I think it looks great. I think Steve would be into something like this.
Oh, Steve loves that shit. You know what I've never seen someone do, which would be interesting, is to get only the Return of the Jedi prints from all of the different variations that come out. That would be really interesting if you got like, if you were just like in love with Return of the Jedi and said, I'm only going to get, because you would have so many variations of the same movie poster print from Matt Ferguson, from like all these different people. That would be pretty cool.
Well, I do have to catch myself because I do have a ton of prints that tend to be Empire Strikes Back focused. Yeah, obviously it's my favorite.
Yeah. That's cool though. That's really neat.
I love the way that this was framed. So this, I have the handbill that's Boba Fett. So I think it's 5x5. It's very small, but I love the way that this was matted. It looks excellent. And these were free during they were included in the tubes of a lot of the New York City virtual Comic-Con that Bottleneck did.
Yep.
So there's like 150 Luke, 150 Vader, 150 Boba Fett, and then 150 Yoda, I want to say. So I know this is not technically Star Wars, and I've showed Batman prints and Jurassic Park. Please forgive me. I hope you still appreciate me. So this one's pretty famous, and the way this was framed was really unique. So that's why I wanted to show it. This was definitely like a very customer project that this framer did with this print. And the only thing I know about this print is that it's it goes for a lot of money now. And I think this one or there's another one as well. I'm pretty sure these started as crew gifts. So that was a private commission. So therefore, for the public to get their hands on them were quite difficult.
Right.
But they were very popular when they hit the airwaves.
That's really cool.
So just real quickly, storage options. I think everyone knows by now that you could put yours in a portfolio. The two that I've seen recommended the most in all of the print groups that I'm a part of are Atoya, which they do multiple sizes. They do 18 by 24. The most popular, obviously, is going to be the 24 by 36, so it could fit prints like the
big ones.
And then Baroque is the ones that are sold through Bottleneck, and I think they just recently opened up international shipping. So I don't know if the Atoyas are more available to international buyers than, say, the Baroque. But I haven't heard.
I need to do that.
I think if there's any differences between the two, they're very nuanced. So I bought the Atoya because it's more readily available. And of course you can they come with X amount of sheets. You could always get extra sheets. They always recommend that even though it's a binder and you can transport it, when you're not doing anything with it, keep it flat, almost like a flat file.
Well, I've also seen, by the way, people mess their prints up when they're flipping through the pages. So like you have to be very careful.
Even trying to get them
in.
Out.
You have to be super careful. So once you get them in, great, they're in. But be careful flipping the page because sometimes when you flip a page, it'll like bend somehow, and
almost like when you like a comic, you're putting that indentation.
Yeah, you got to be super careful.
So Hugh, these are the two that are most commonly recommended portfolios, and if these are too big or too small, so I think the largest size in
never too big
in In the Baroque, I know the largest they do is it 27 by 41? I think it is.
I think usually and as far as like the books go, yeah, because then they have the singles and the boxes.
Yeah. Another easy way you're going to screw up your prints, even if they're in a portfolio, is I think a lot of people tend to hide them under their bed. But then when you shove stuff under your bed, it could push against pages and dent them.
Just be careful.
Or if you spill something, yeah.
Flat file. So the commercially available ones, if you just want to order one, are going to be, I saw prices from $300 to $1,000. That being said,
they're so big.
There's so many people on any of the print forums that'll tell you check Craigslist, check Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah, right.
Offices will go out of business.
You can constantly get these for next to nothing.
Especially because they're so heavy and they're so big.
So
like,
big.
People are just
as long as you're willing to pick it up or have a way to pick it up, you can practically get these for free. Mine are like immaculate, almost brand new, and I just paid to pick them up. That was it.
Yeah. I've seen ones where the top is glass so that you could always see that top layer of prints that you have and then maybe rotate them out. I've seen people use them as coffee tables.
And guys, just so everyone understands, if you don't already know, keeping your prints in tubes for a very long time is not smart. I'm the worst offender. Like I should not do that, and I do sometimes. Like I've got a bunch of tubes I got to get stuff out of, but it's better to keep them flat and to store them in something like this or like a portfolio. They're gonna last longer and be just better taken care of. So,
and I think the quick like nitty gritty science behind it is that paper has a memory. So the longer you keep it rolled up, the less likely it is to unroll without you having some sort of damage because it's been in that rolled shape for so long. If that makes sense. Yeah. And that's actually it.
Danny says,
it just used to black.
I never left my tubes. Well, yeah, I mean, I have a bunch like that too.
The paper could also over time start to work against itself if it's sitting in there like not for weeks or months, but if you have tubes that are just hanging around for like a year or two, or
a lot of times, Jason, that's why they put other things between when they roll
the paper and
they put things in between just in case.
Yeah, the tissue paper and
they'll last a long time. I'm just saying that a very long time is not what you don't want to keep them in the tubes for like.
And then like Cece said, then you just have the issue of like having to flatten it. Which one thing we can talk about accessories too going further, but like one thing I always have on hand, especially with buying prints, is instead of using cups, and I see people take pictures like on eBay when you're looking for a print that you missed, and people have like a regular glass that you drink milk or water out of.
Right.
Get print weights, and you can get them from any online art store, and they don't damage the print. And there's actually print cleaner. You can actually just roll it over the print and get any surface debris and things like that off. But keeping them in tubes is a tricky one because then they just have that sort of spring, and it's tough to get them down. You'd be surprised. Sometimes you have to flatten them for like a couple weeks to get rid of that.
And we'll try to cover more of this. Cece, I know.
Yeah.
Cece wants to kind of do a lot of this. Honestly, I think it would be really fun, guys, to also include comics in when we talk about prints, because the way we collect comics is not the way other people collect comics. We collect them for the art more than anything else, and that they're basically tiny posters. And so it could be really interesting to kind of talk about comics as well in a way of collecting artwork. So it'd be fun. Yeah.
And incorporating them in like a gallery roll or something like that.
Yeah.
I think this was maybe the most boring show I anticipate doing, just because it's a lot of info heavy. I think hopefully, like I said, fun. I'd love to just have a list of artists to go through and just go through their work, because I love finding new artists, and not necessarily the I don't want to say big name, but big name ones that go through their prints go up and sell out within 5 or less minutes on like Mondo or Bottleneck, like some that are already available, so therefore it's not intimidating, it's not stressful buying experience. So I've got a few ideas floating around, so hope everyone enjoys.
Benjamin makes a good point. Foam core is very inexpensive. Any frame shop, even Michael's, can cut a sheet for you. and it can make a great way to store print, especially if you need to store it flat. Like let's say you plan on getting something framed and you're waiting a couple weeks or a couple months and you want to flatten it. Make sure it's acid-free foam board because it's only a couple dollars difference at best. It's still just as inexpensive, but they'll cut it. They'll put it on they have a wall cutter. They'll just slice the foam board to whatever size you want, 2 pieces, put the frame in between it, seal it, and you're good to go. That'll keep it flat and it'll keep it protected because it's acid-free. So yeah, great suggestion, Benjamin. I didn't think of that. I used to do that a lot in the past before having the flat file and portfolio. But yeah, there's lots of ways you can go about it.
Yeah, and Danny's suggesting we should do a top 5 prints show of your top 5 prints of your collection. Yeah, we'll think of some good ideas, guys. If you have suggestions, let us know. Obviously, this is CC's idea. Like CC's been wanting to do this for a while, so we thought we'd figure a way to make it happen. Good job, CC. I think it was fantastic. I enjoyed the show.
Oh yeah, Robin, you see hers, Matt? Include that vinyl artwork. Dude. Yes. Yes, I collect so much vinyl just for the artwork.
I can't tell you how much vinyl I've bought in the last 2 months. It's so bad. It's so bad.
I can't collect one more style of thing.
Honestly,
can't fucking do it.
Honestly, one thing I've learned is that if you have a collecting brain, if you're someone that likes collecting things and you get into a new thing, it's like finding. It's like you didn't know, but finding like heroin and being like, oh shit, this is fantastic. Like I didn't know this was out there, and now all of a sudden you're like shooting up all the time. Anyway, that's bad analogy, but yeah, it's pretty bad. It's been an interesting. It's been interesting.
I tried to put their names as best I can, but there were folks who sent me photos of their collections and people who still anticipate sending me photos of their collections, and I really appreciate those guys. So like Joshua, Kyle. Kevin, there's a few people who I knew were kind of like print addicts like me that I reached out to, and without any hesitation, they were willing to kind of like open up their collections and show us. So
that's awesome.
I'd like to do stuff like that too in the future, collection videos where it's prints, because we always just do, like I said, JPEG, and it's easier.
It'd be fun. And Brian, I did.
Yeah, we jumped on that. I woke him up I called him just to make sure he was awake for that one.
So not that it mattered. It was around. It was around forever. But yeah, I did.
Just in case.
I don't want vinyls to hijack everything. But were those available for a while? Because I clicked the link after they're after 20 minutes after they went live. They're still available.
That's the nice thing about vinyl still with Mondo, is that it's not so ridiculous that like a print that you can actually. You don't have to get on in 5 minutes and get the thing. Like it's still going to last for the most part. Now, if it was like Daft Punk had some sort of like Mondo release or something like that for vinyl, it'd be gone.
Do you remember when they released? Do you remember they released that art print, right? And it was like, it's ridiculous. It was like $75 or $100. You can't get the thing for like under like $3-4 grand. It's insane.
It's crazy.
It was like so easy to get initially, and then just boom.
Danny's trying to figure out the pronunciation for
Giclée.
Yep, just like that. Say it like that, Giclée. And Robert Troy, art is everywhere. It's on our, I mean, what's the Star Wars boxes? You just get the black and gray little line, but it's primarily we're surrounded by it. It's on everything.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much for hanging out. CC, thanks for putting this together, and we're looking forward to more shows, and I'm sure Steve
Matt,
will
next
jump
show
on some
will be
shows.
Triple frame.
Yep, we're gonna do all
show
kinds
some of the triple frames in my collection.
Yeah, I think there's a lot we can talk about, how to frame things, how like you talked about, CC, the value of art. Where to buy these things, like where to go and buy these things. Like we didn't.
That's the one thing we don't send people.
Yeah, we don't
want
people
hijacking our.
Don't compete against us with that.
I know. Yeah, we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot by if I give out all my tricks all in one show.
Figure it out on your own. No, I'm kidding. We'll help you
out. Hugh asking when's the next show. We don't know yet. We're still. We barely got this show together. CC.
Well, who's we?
No, CC had the idea. She put the whole thing together. We barely
showed up on time.
showed up on time and got it to work. So
I'm only barely kidding.
We're guys, everyone knows this. Like me, Steve, Jason, and Chris are like we're the problem with this whole channel. Like we suck at what we do. We try our hardest. But like we're not good at it. So, we do what we can to make it work. And CC we appreciate you being on. You make it better. And I think this show is gonna be fun because I really, really like I like Prince a lot. We don't talk about Prince a lot in some of the other stuff. And so it's nice to have something we can talk. Hopefully we can actually go over like new releases sometimes. And I really love Prince, and I love maybe incorporating comics here and there. It's just really, really fun.
And the guys, so like the new releases, I think anyone in the Facebook group knows I do my damnedest to try to give people heads up when I see them or when I see it teased even. I have no idea when it's going to drop. So that's a little tricky just because if anyone knows, we tend to get not much notice before they go live for sale, but it's something that I would like to do, obviously. And
you do a great job, CC, of letting people know like what's going on with like the process of them being made as well. Like, they're not coming, this is why it's not coming to us right away. This person said this, or like, you seem to be up on that stuff, which is great. It's good to know that. So
yeah, the artists and companies must love that, like calming the people down.
Yeah, they probably do. They're
just like, it's been 2 months off of their heads.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you guys. I appreciate it. CC, any last words at all?
Thanks for showing up. I appreciate it. I hope everyone liked it. I'm looking forward to more of these for sure, because I feel like now I finally have a seat at the table because it's something I've collected for, I think, 2014 maybe. So
let's get something straight here. She's not saying finally she has a seat at the table because she's a girl and we've kept her away from the seat at the table. That's not what she's saying. I hope we've tried our best to try to help.
I think so. Well, of course we're trying to sign off, and I keep talking. I think people can probably appreciate this where, like, say if you started collecting with one thing, it always feels like you're going home when you have a chance to talk about that one thing. And you might have had lulls in between. Like there's 1 year that I didn't buy any prints, and that's kind of, unheard of now to think about, honestly. But it feels really nostalgic. Like I can still look at those prints and remember how excited I was to get them and how much I appreciate them when I had them, and I still appreciate them. So,
and CC, it's nice for you to be on a show where you can, this is what you collect, right? Like you do collect other things. I'm not saying you don't, but you're not a Hot Toys collector. You're not really a statue collector. You do collect helmets here and there, but like I'm just like what you collect for reals is prints, and it's nice for you to be able to have something to actually talk on that. That's great. It's great.
Yeah. Awesome.
So anyway,
and nothing's better than cracking a tube open and getting the smell of that screen print. When
great.
CC said, like, feeling like you're at home, it's just like when you open that tube and you just smell that screen print.
See, I just need to take them out of the tubes is my problem. Like I need to actually get them out of the tubes. It's bad.
And once you have them out, you're just like, God, why did I keep this fucking for so long?
Exactly. I have too many like that. I know it's bad. All right, guys, thank you so much again. And I think we'll be back. I don't know. I think we're doing an unboxing next week. I think we're getting a lot of RS stuff in.
We got a few things going on the next 2 weeks, next week or two.
I think we're getting a Y-Wing and a blaster and a couple, maybe a DAC helmet that some of us will be opening I think we're trying to open it all together. So we'll have some stuff to put up. So, all right, guys, have a good night.